We made so many mistakes when we decided to get rid of everything we own in order to travel full-time. So today we're sharing our 11 best tips that we learned the hard way so that you can make things a lot easier when you decide to downsize for your full-time travel.
These are going to be Tuesday episodes. We're going to ship them weekly if we can, but we're still going to have our travel episodes on every Saturday. And these tips will also work if you're trying to just simplify your life for retirement or just extended travel. And for the rest of this series, we're going to be digging deeper into many of the topics we're going to be talking about today.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way. Our goal is to make this process as painless as possible for you. So let's get started with begin with the end in mind. We made this so much harder on ourselves than it had to be. We didn't have a plan for where we were actually going or what we're actually doing and the timeline for it. So everything was just so much tougher.
Originally, we thought that we would be expats living in Europe, and that meant that we would be saving some things and taking them with us as we set up a new home base. But that's a completely different process than when we decided to become full-time travelers and get rid of everything we owned and have no home base. The decision process on our stuff looked completely different, and the way we thought about things was the polar opposite.
On top of all that, we didn't have a solid timeline for when we were going to leave. So that made things just even more complicated. How does your travel picture look? Will you have a home base? Will you be traveling full-time? What are you going to plan on doing?
Understanding where you want to travel is important for a few reasons. The first is so that you know what clothes to pack, and so you can set those aside, but also so that you can envision yourself in the activities that you're going to be doing and some of the sites that you're going to be seeing, and build the enthusiasm that you're going to need when the decluttering process gets overwhelming or feels hard, and you get confused about why you're going to all of this trouble in the first place.
So if you're planning on downsizing, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments what your plans are and your timeline for it.
Our second tip is to understand your goals. When we first thought we would be expats, we had a goal of living out of 5 suitcases and taking that with us. Once we decided we were going to be full-time travelers, we decided we were going to be living out of 2 backpacks and a suitcase apiece. And that was a completely different experience. Hemming and hawing about which items were precious that we wanted to store or take with us overseas was not at all something that entered our minds when we knew we were going to be full-time travelers. It made the decision process so much more clear-cut.
What we did know was that we wanted to spend a lot less money than we were spending in San Francisco. We wanted to use our rent money for travel, not for a home base or for any kind of storage unit.
You want to figure out what's really important to you. Even if you're going to keep a home base, it's probably a really good idea to downsize. Also, if you're going through the downsize process, understand your timeline, because it's a much different thing to sell things versus donate things versus give them away or trash them. But selling things can take a lot of time. And if you're donating things, that can be confusing because not every place takes everything that you want to get rid of. It's a time-consuming process in and of itself. So that's why we're going to have an entire video where we tackle this process together.
Our third tip, stop buying stuff. Even if you aren't sure of your perfect timeline yet, but you're considering downsizing or considering traveling full-time, you need to stop whatever your planned purchases are. We knew that if we had more time when we were making this decision to full-time travel, we would have done something very differently. We stopped purchasing immediately when we made the decision to go full-time, but before that, we were living our lives. We were buying things, we were decorating, we were planning to live in San Francisco. And the more you can take away from that pain of having more stuff to get rid of, the better off your life will be.
Yeah, 6 months beforehand, we had just purchased a new living room set. We'd purchased a Peloton. And so those were expensive pieces of equipment that were painful to have to get rid of.
And no return on investment for those.
We took a huge loss on things. And had we had a clearer timeline, we would have made different choices. So of course we're talking about big purchases, but also even the little purchases. I know a lot of people spend a ton of money on buying extra shampoos and skincare products and makeup, and they don't ever use what they have. That even applies to things in your pantry, and just use up the stuff that you're using. Don't be over consuming because it's a few dollars here and a few dollars there. You're going to have to get rid of all of that. So make it easier on yourself.
Tip number 4, even if you have a 5-year plan, start downsizing immediately. We made the mistake of thinking we had more time than we did, and we really didn't.
We had already downsized a couple of times. We had a big home that we had downsized from to a small apartment. We thought moving into this bigger space would be pretty easy because we'd culled things twice.
To be fair, when we moved that second apartment, we did unload everything that was in our storage unit, so we were downsizing some things. We felt pretty good about that, but some of that stuff ended up in our apartment.
Our lead time when we decided to be expats was about 5 months to downsize. And then when we realized we were going to travel full time, we really only had about 5 weeks. Now, we'd done some work along the way, but it wasn't nearly enough.
And what's the worst case if you downsize too soon? I mean, you'll have an uncluttered place, you'll have less to worry about, you won't have this stress of stepping over at the clutter. You won't have to look through things. And frankly, if you're not buying stuff, you're saving money.
I also really think that there's a huge mental benefit that you get from having less clutter in your life. So you get to enjoy that up until the time that you're ready to leave. Plus, if you're one of those people who struggles with the hard stuff, the sentimental things, that may take you a little bit longer than you think it will. So having a little bit more of a buffer is never going to be a bad idea.
Tip number 5, don't overcomplicate the process. We started out by thinking we need to make spreadsheets of everything we own and everything we're going to sell. And frankly, that was overwhelming in itself. Trying to look at everything that we have and put it onto a worksheet and figure it out, that's crazy. That's just extra effort you don't need to spend.
Yeah, you don't want to be spending more time with your stuff than you absolutely need to. And I found just even listing the things that we were going to sell to be extremely tedious. If you really are somebody who likes making lists, a better list that you could be making is an inventory of your spaces. So let's say you have 10 different cabinets in your kitchen and this many drawers, and you can list them out by broadly what's in each category. If that's too stressful, you could even just do by room of your house. And either way you look at it, you still can check off each area that you complete and you'll feel a sense of satisfaction, but you won't have to be itemizing everything in your world. I don't think it's as much of a stretch to say you probably have 20,000 things in your home when you consider the fact of how many knives and forks and spoons and appliances and towels and all of the things, all of the minutia. It adds up to a lot. You don't need to inventory all of it.
We'll have a video later in this series that helps you work through all of this process. Tip number 6, the easy stuff goes first. We have a very old video that talks about how we got rid of some of our stuff and how we unloaded the easy stuff first. And it's really a good process. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things that you have in your home that you haven't looked at or touched or used in months or maybe even years. Those things are easy to get rid of because you don't have much emotional attachment to them, or you really shouldn't if they're just sitting there as gadgets in the home.
When you get rid of the easy stuff first, you're going to give yourself some quick wins that's going to help you build momentum and feel more positive about the experience. Turn on some good music or a great podcast. You can listen to some of our episodes if you'd like. Anything to just help pass the time as you're going through this process.
And as you're going through this process, give yourself a reward for every drawer, every space, every place that you've emptied. You deserve it. You've done a lot of work. Tip number 7, one and done for each item. The more you move stuff around, the more you transfer something from one place to another, the more exhausting it gets. And you don't want to have to look at the same item 4 or 5 times. And you certainly don't want to get into a process of maybe I'll just tidy up the closet. Well, that's going to burn you out too. This is not part of the downsizing process. Focus on one area and remove that stuff from your home immediately.
Decision fatigue is a real thing, and you want to be very mindful to eliminate that as much as possible. So even though you may be having trouble, especially if you are downsizing and not getting rid of everything, When you're looking at a cabinet or drawer, make a commitment that you're going to go through it and get rid of everything. Solve the problem all at once so that you don't have to look at an item and decide whether you're going to keep it or not. Every time you look into that drawer, it's going to be a painful thing, and it's not going to be any easier to decide later than it would be to make the decision right then and there.
How many times have we walked into our closets, pulled out boxes, looked in them, said, oh, yeah, there's a lot in there. We'll deal with that later. It's like, no, then we're going to look in there again just a week later and go, what was in there? It's not helpful.
Even if it's labeled, you don't want to have to touch it more than once.
No.
What was interesting to me is once we decided that we were getting rid of everything, it was suddenly so much easier to look at the stuff that had an emotional hold over me and just not tolerate it at all. I knew I needed to get rid of everything, so I was able to make some ruthless decisions, and it was so much easier that way.
Tip number 8, get help. You may be a person who's very sentimental about stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And you may be too close to some of the decisions you have to make about your stuff. So bring in a friend who is invested in you having this bright future that you have planned. Someone that looks forward to seeing you happy and on the road, so they can help you make these decisions. Maybe push you over the edge on some of the stuff. Like, what are you really going to do with those 15 sweaters? Is that going to go on the trip with you?
Yeah, somebody who maybe is a little bit less invested in your stuff than you are, who doesn't have the emotional attachment, who doesn't have the memories that you do, that can just help you move on from some things, that's going to make things a lot easier. Treat them to dinner, put on some fun music, have some good conversations, turn it into a fun activity.
Or give them some of your stuff, because that's one way to get rid of it. Hey, you want some of this? How'd you like my record collection? That'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? Tip number 9, get your stuff out of your home. You feel much better about the progress you're making if you can see empty spaces, if you can see open floor, if you can see shelves that don't have anything on them. You're going to feel so much better. Don't wait and collect everything in a pile and try to get it all out at one time. Make multiple trips if you have to donation centers, to recycling centers, wherever you're trying to donate or get rid of your stuff. Do it as often as you can.
If you have to climb over your stuff or work around it, it's going to be very overwhelming. And you're also not going to get credit in your mind for all that you've already accomplished. But as you're seeing empty drawers and more space, it really is encouraging and makes it easier for you to want to get more out of your home. And plus, I feel like you'll have a lot more mental clarity when you're seeing more free space.
Plus, you don't want that stuff staring back at you. You've already made a decision about it. Get it out of there. Tip number 10, and this is a big one, scan your pictures first. If you have physical pictures or are old enough to have videotapes of your family and friends, you're going to want to get that stuff digitized as early as possible. It takes a long time to scan photos. We thought we could do it in a short period of time, but trust me, it's very time consuming, and you just don't want to throw those things away. We had boxes and boxes and albums. We went through a lot of it, but we just ran out of time, and we wish we would have done that years before.
Especially even things in albums. It takes a long time to get things out of albums.
True.
You thought you were doing a good job to put everything in, but it makes things a lot harder when it's time to scan them. We also think it's important to save memorabilia that you need to scan till after your photos are done. You aren't going to want to throw out photos that haven't been scanned.
Yeah, memorabilia can be just quick snapshots with your phone, and that works out fine. But you probably want the photos to be a little higher resolution. And just think of this. Once you have everything digitized, now you have it with you forever and wherever you are. Maybe you haven't seen it in years because it's been in a box somewhere, maybe in a storage unit, or maybe in a closet somewhere. Now it's fully accessible, even if you're traveling all over the world. And our last tip, be brutal. Keep the bare minimum around while downsizing.
If you're looking at something and you're trying to think, maybe I want to keep this, no. The answer is either yes, I need this, no, I don't. Make it as clear, easy, and straightforward for yourself as you possibly can. You will not regret getting rid of things, but you will regret that you have too much stuff and now you need to pay for a storage unit, because those costs add up every single month.
Now, we don't have any regrets about the stuff we got rid of, and our load is so much lighter now. We're not thinking about, well, there's stuff at home that we still need to go capture and do something with. all done. We have zero regrets about everything that we gave up to full-time travel. We don't miss any of it. In fact, it's been a lot less burdensome on us to not have to think about all our stuff. Now what we get to think about is our travels, the enjoyment we're having at new places and new spaces, and the people we're meeting. It's just so much better.
We hope this bonus episode has been helpful for you. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to subscribe, and the best compliment you can give to us is to share our videos with your friends and family.
Check out findingGina.com. We have articles there, more information about us, and our community forum.
Until next time.
Until next time. Tip number 7, touch your stuff only one time. That sounds dirty. Does that sound dirty? maybe that's the wrong way to say. Okay, we won't say that.
Let's see.
And also, stop decorating and stop buying gadgets. It's tempting to add a few more things to the home, but if you're planning on leaving, where's that stuff going to go? It's going to have to be part of your process to get rid of.
I feel attacked. Decorating? That's like and gadgets? Like, wait a minute.